Guess we'll see who shows up. Since there's not that many people watching videos right now, it'll be interesting. Hey everybody! Welcome to our live show. We're here coming from the beautiful Oregon coast. One person joined. Let's see what we can talk about today. Hey, there's a couple people popped in. There's a few more. They're starting to look for us. Yay. Ian says, welcome. Astrol says, hello. Hi. How you doing today? There's no vowels except for your first letter. They're always challenging how I can say these things. I'm like, really? All right. But hey, we'll call you Az. How's that? Since I'll just trip over the last three consonants. Can't even say the word. But welcome. Welcome to our live chat. We're open for questions. A few more people have popped in. That made them laugh. Yeah. Good. Senses of humor. I like it. Make sure that my little arrow doesn't do something silly. Aaron Jones says, hello. Hi, Aaron. How are you this week? I like the color of your E, the circle. Very watery looking.
Oh, yeah, that's nice.
Vanessa V says, hi. Hi, Vanessa V. And she's got like an orange V. It's very creative, the things that people do on the internet. I love all that stuff. So welcome. Right now we have just a few of you there, so you can get the ball rolling and ask your questions now before too many people get on. Oh, 4 more people showed up. TV Movies, hello, good day to everyone. Hi, TV Movies. And see, they have a TV with a red circle. It's like we have all these things. Vala the Composer, hello to all. Hello, Vala. I don't think I've remembered seeing you on our live show before. Maybe you were there, but in the background. Aaron Jones says, I have been seeing a lot of ads for mushroom coffee. Have you heard of it? Yes, I have. And it looks very expensive. Mushrooms are good for you. There's no doubt about it. And there are a lot of benefits for the different kinds of mushrooms. And, you know, Reiki and, no, is that the Reiki mushroom? Do they have a Reiki mushroom? Reishi. That's it. Reishi. Right. Reishi and lion's mane and turkey tail and a few others that we have in our supplement. And there's a lot of health benefits, and they're doing a lot of research right now. They're doing medical studies. Turkey tail is known to be cancer killing mushroom. And actually I have a client and a family member both who know someone who currently has cancer. So I've been spreading the word about that in case it can help. But
lion's mane for your brain.
Yep, lion's mane for the brain. Jonathan says, hello. Hi, Jonathan. Dublin Fitzpatrick says at Siofra, hello. Good to see you. Hi, Dublin. How are you doing? So yeah, it's kind of interesting that, you know, we've watched a lot of the videos that Paul Stamets puts out and looked at some of the research into the mushrooms, and mushrooms are so important. The mycelial network through the forest is what transmits information and messages between trees and stuff like that. So it's like a really important part of our ecosystem. And I think they're the only like food source for vitamin D. So that's kind of interesting too. And I think they're also high on iron, aren't they?
Which ones?
Mushrooms in general.
I don't know, actually.
Okay, well, we'll have to look that up. As says, oh, I did not know that from Turkey Tail. Interesting. Yeah, Paul Stamets tells a story about that. His mother had stage 4 breast cancer. One of her breasts was 4 times its size when she was diagnosed, and they told her to go home and die. And I think that was 15 years ago. And he put
Something
her
like that,
on
yeah.
Turkey Tail, and her breasts are now the normal size. She was elderly. She's obviously still elderly, but
Couldn't undergo
alive.
the operation, yeah.
And they just said there was no treatment that would work for her that she would be able to survive. And so we know at least of one case where it definitely healed somebody completely. So it's kind of promising that way.
You know, since somebody's asking lots of questions yet, maybe we can ask what people would like, if they would like me to do a video, what they would like me to do a video on, just for, in general,
Okay.
ideas.
So Ruth says hi all. Siofra, hi Ruth. JM says hello from Scotland. Loving your shawl, Siofra. The color really suits you. Yeah, it's got the purples and the blues and the greens and stuff like that in it. I hadn't seen this shawl in a while because I used it as an altar cloth when we were doing out, with our portable altar stuff, doing rituals out in the woods. And I was cleaning up the temple yesterday. We started the process of getting it cleaned up again, and found it in the box of stuff that we take out. And I thought, I want to use that shawl again. I'm taking it back. So Dublin says, doing well, thank you, and hello at Ian. I can hear in the background. Yes,
Blessed be.
he's there. Violet says, hi guys. Hi Violet. Az says, the magic ones also contain some DMT. Well, they're also doing a lot of research into that for helping with mental health, certain mental health conditions. In fact, I saw an ad for that just the other day. I thought it was interesting, the psilocybin. Jonathan says hi to Violet. Violet says, Ian, Crowley, Golden Dawn, Lon, Milo, Barden, Enochian.
Yeah,
That's what she would like to see videos
I was just thinking
on.
about that. Because of our various talks about Crowley, I think that people could easily get the wrong impression. I've been thinking about doing something on some of his stuff, maybe one of the holy books, some of his poetry or something like that, so people can get a more rounded idea of Crowley, because his reputation is awful, but he was a serious magician oriented towards becoming enlightened and reaching the top of things. So let's not forget that. That was his real attitude and approach. So I might do a thing covering Crowley and some of the other stuff.
Well, I think it'd be interesting for people to hear about the history of the Golden Dawn, the original one, and how you begin something can determine whether or not it's going to survive.
Well, that's true too, but well, I certainly have lots of information on it.
I found that fascinating when you were telling me about it, and I just thought it was a pretty interesting thing because he has such a wealth of information from different sources and stuff like that. Because not everybody has that. So Violet says hi to Jonathan, and that would be so awesome, Ian. Thank you, Siofra. You're welcome. And Az says that's a nice idea.
Okay.
So,
don't know how long it'll take me to get to it, but
hey, always coming
I'll
up
head
with
that
good
direction.
ideas.
That's right.
Yeah, today I decided I should have a piece of paper and a pencil next to me so I can write this stuff down, because I can't remember it once we're done. It's like, whew, I'm off to the next thing. So, hey, I had a very interesting experience with one of my clients Friday morning that I've worked on for quite a few years. The first time I saw her was right after her open heart surgery. And there's in my office, the way my office is set up, the lighting is just perfect for looking for energy things and seeing movement and stuff like that. And so I was just looking down her body. I was sitting at her head. She was facing up, and was just scanning, looking at her energy field. And I saw this odd looking thing that I sort of described like a hairball. It was sort of like lines of energy all bundled up into a little form about yay big. And so I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking, okay, so is that like something in my eye, like a floater? Or is this actually in her energy field? And as I watched it going up and down with her breath. So her chest would rise, it would rise, her chest would fall, it would fall. And I figured that was a pretty clear indication that it was in her energy field and not in my field of view. And so I grabbed a hold of it and I pulled it and like pulled it off of her aura and stuck it on the ground and sunk it into the earth beneath my table. And then it was gone, but then not long after that, there was another one that showed up right above her knees in the middle. It was just there. So I did the same thing with that one. Then after I got that one out, there was a third one that showed up at the bottom of her feet. And so I got that one out. And I thought, okay, that was interesting. I'm not sure exactly what this means or what kind of effect it's going to have. And then yesterday she texted me and said she doesn't know what it was that I did, but she is feeling better than she has in a long time. So I thought that was awesome. So it was just interesting. Like, I'm always learning new things. So Jonathan says, Ian, there's tons. Just this week, Siofra mentioned you have quite a collection of magic tools, for example, a sword. You are comfortable with it. Show and tell would be interesting.
Actually, if you want to show the sword, just as a
We have matching swords.
This actually got a brief charge once by
Wasn't that Long Duquette?
wife, Constance.
Constance?
Used that once.
Okay, let's see if I can get this in here without torturing myself. I think that's probably about the right level. I can't tell until the picture comes up. Yeah, we have a pair of these, a matching set. So that's the hilt of his sword at any rate.
Oh, I've got
so
weird thing going on with my.
Here you go. This is kind of heavy.
There it is.
Ah, all right. Charity says, hello there. Hi, Charity. Ian says, thanks, Jonathan. Angela says, hello, everyone. Blessings. Hi, Angela. Val says, nice healing work. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I'm always surprised at the new things that pop up. Az says, hey, Siofra, do you take clients remotely or does it have to be in person? I do some long distance healing, but usually it's just like family coming to me and saying, hey, I need this. Right now, I guess my uncle, who's only 3 months older than me, has just been diagnosed with like everywhere cancer, and he's not expected to survive very long, that kind of thing. But we might be doing another healing circle soon, I think. We haven't done one in a while. We did an experiment, and it worked pretty well. So, Jonathan said, hi, Angela. Violet says, very impressive set. And hi, Angela. Dublin says, what do you guys do with the swords? Not fight, I assume. Yeah. Do you know how heavy that thing is to try and lift and hold? Sword is very specifically a ceremonial kind of, it's sort of like a super long athame in a sense. It represents your...
Yeah, the only time you need a sword is when you're purposely working with negative beings. And so it's oriented around that in general, except that it's used for symbolism in a lot of things. You can certainly draw a circle with a sword, a lot of those type of energetic things. It was for an initiation at that time.
And we also used it in our wedding, yes. Our hand fasting, which is how they know about the sword.
Yes, generally though it's a like pictured like Gabriel's sword or something like that, the flaming sword kind of thing to keep off if you're having to work with real negativity or banish real negative stuff or something like that.
So Jonathan says, extremely cool, and Az says, oh, a healing circle, sounds awesome, I would love to be part of it. Yeah, I was trying to decide exactly what we might want to do. I was sort of thinking about the idea of doing a healing circle to raise energy for Ukraine and for what's going on there. And if we did that, it'd be more like a full-on ritual. Or we could do what we did before, which would be sending healing energy to each other. We sort of have to come up with how we want to do it and what part we want to focus on. I'm not sure if we had energy to do all of them, but we might. I mean, it could be we could do individuals and then send energy to the people of Ukraine to try and help them through this difficult time that they're going through right now. But yeah, we'll see. Now we're waiting for the more questions. 23 people are on there right now. Awesome. Last week we had 45, I think, which is the most we've had in a single live show so far, so that was kind of neat. It's always cool to get new people and stuff, too. Hello, Siofra. How much do you charge for a personal healing session and or reading? Well, I've just sort of, I've decided that I'm going to charge a base rate of $50 an hour for that kind of thing. Just so, I'm taking an hour out of my time and that sort of stuff. You can send me a friend's request on Facebook and send me a message through Messenger and talk about the details. Or you can, so that's kind of what I do. Moonfire says, I want another healing circle, but Ukraine is priority right now. Yeah, it seems like it's sort of an emergency. I was talking to some spirits, I think it was now a couple weeks ago, and trying to find out how long this conflict was going to go on. And at the time they said 6 weeks, which would make it the end of April, beginning of May, if they're right about that. So I guess we'll see if that was correct or if things changed after they told me that. Turned out I was right about the number of people in our area that were going to pass from COVID, so. Charity says, I was speaking with an owl last night. Very cool. Animals talk to me. Yeah, I like owls. I like all kinds of birds and animals of all kinds. We have a wild turkey population here, and when I sleep with my window partly open, they often come up our street. The other morning, apparently somebody upset them or something upset them because suddenly there was a cacophony of turkey, kind of gobbling going on, which woke me up. And I thought, okay, time to get out of bed. But this was funny. Ashley, my granddaughter, she thought that this was someone's turkeys because she saw them in someone's yard in the back. And I'm trying to explain to her, no, these are just wild turkeys. They're just wandering around our area. They don't belong to anybody.
It's really cool that we have so much wildlife, and really we're pretty much in town.
Yeah, we
just almost.
And I had a neighbor, a woman across the street, who got a show of crows because I went out there one morning to feed the crows, and she was dropping off her kid. I guess there's a daycare across the street or something. And the crows were right on top of it when I put the food out, and there were about 40 of them that came flying down, all yelling at the same time. And she's looking out her car window. She's going like, whoa, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, crow lady here, so, be nice to them or else.
Martin has a few bits of stuff he talks about where he talks about the language of animals and how you might go about learning the language of different animals and things as a type of clairvoyance.
Well, I had somebody who just actually wrote in about suddenly having a time when she heard her cat talking. And the cat was, had one of those cones on, and was stumbling down the hallway and hit like a doorway and was going like, I hate this thing. This really makes me look stupid or something like that. So I thought that was great. So Dublin says, I used to laugh so hard watching the wild turkeys chasing people all over. So Luna says, hello all, how are you guys doing? Well, we're doing pretty well, I think. Low energy the last couple days for me, but then I've been cleaning and, I have some sore muscles from working in the temple yesterday, trying to rearrange things.
I gotta get my meditations because we've been been disrupted for 2 or 3 days.
Right, we had an old truck that somebody came by and wanted to buy, and we sold it to them, and then they came by to get it yesterday, and so there was a lot of activity then. Now my granddaughter's car's not working, so Ian was working on that this morning, trying to figure out what was wrong. So
yeah, well, it's just I get enough meditation time. I like it to be on kind of a schedule so that my body is prepared for meditation and stuff at that time.
So Blair says, I keep having small animal bones showing up around my house. Any ideas? Well, you've got a good apex predator that's leaving you presents. I don't know. There's a lot of animals out there that die all the time, so I'm not sure if it's meaningful or not. It depends on your own personal language with the universe and what are omens for you and what they mean. Because the universe adapts to your specific take on things a lot.
Thought processes, the way you identify things.
Yeah.
I mean, it's has to be somewhat individualized before people get it, and then
Yeah.
that's all. I have nothing more to add to that. It's just
So
it's more individual. You know, the same thing might mean one thing for one person and something else for somebody different.
that's true. And if you're convinced it means one thing and you're not open to other possible meanings, then you've sort of narrowed the universe down to a very specific role in that regard. So keeping an open mind is always a good idea. But sometimes things don't have any specific meaning. I mean, life happens around us, things are getting killed and eaten constantly. I was watching some nature shows, and oh my, the big cats and the way they hunt and stuff like that. It's like, wow, all right, and yeah, there's a lot of incredible violence that goes on around us all the time because things have to eat. And it may not be about us in particular.
That's true too.
So Luna said to Jonathan, I missed you, I was meditating. Mixed Diva says, hello, good afternoon all. Hi, Mixed Diva. Angela says, I want to ask what you think about people stealing magic books and oracle cards from stores. It became such a problem at my local Barnes & Noble, they had to move the section behind the counter. My guess is the shoplifters were taking them to use. Do you think they would work? I would think they wouldn't work for them. I would think they would not either.
Well, you have to watch out too, because it could be hard to say, but it could be a Christian thing too, because they've been known to steal books out of libraries and things, so people won't be able to check them out and things like that.
This is true. Some of them do that so they can like burn them later.
Yeah.
To save souls, from the horrible things that we do.
Just something that I ran across. Bunches of missing books from the library I tried to check out.
Yeah, there's a lot of them here, actually. They had the problem with the library here for quite a while, and it comes and goes as far as that goes. But if they were stealing them to use for magical purposes, they've already damaged their authority with the universe by the act of stealing them.
Absolutely.
And so, no, they won't work, or at least they won't work right.
They won't work nearly as well.
Yeah, they won't work right. They might get information that's completely inaccurate and wrong and lead them down some merry path.
There's a phrase they used to use for anything magical. It used to be, they would say, buy an egg without haggling. Well, so not necessarily an egg, but whatever it is you buy. If you're haggling for it, then you're already in your own mind, whether you realize it or not, you're decreasing the value of what you're getting, and you're going to decrease its magical effectiveness by doing that also.
Absolutely. I think that, and I always tell people that. I've told you about that one guy that was here for a while that would brag about how he would get people who were, selling crystals and stones and stuff like that to practically give them away to him just to get them out of the area because he was so annoying. And I just thought, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, just don't haggle over stuff that's intended for magical uses, just to make sure.
If you can't afford it, don't buy it.
Yeah, get your full oomph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Charity says, connecting with my ancestors and past loved ones is really interesting indeed. Yes, it certainly can be. Jonathan says, Luna, it's cool that you were meditating. Ian just asked whether anyone is interested in him doing specific videos. Are you still interested in the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram? We actually have a meditation of that up.
Yeah, if so, you'd have to, we have a meditation that's made off the lesser banishing. You'd also have to distinguish between a standard banishing or Crowley's thelemic banishing, which is in Greek.
Yeah. You want to learn Greek, I guess, is the question.
I mean, well, no, whether you want to learn Crowley's banishing or
which
the Golden
would be
Dawn
learning
banishing,
Greek.
or yeah.
Yeah.
I do it myself slightly different than all of them, though I started out doing the standard Golden Dawn one for years.
So Blair says mundane over magical, I suppose. It's weird though because they are old bones, not new bones. Thank you. Okay. Charity says asking for wisdom, strength, guidance, wisdom, and knowledge. Well, those are always good things to ask for. Angela says that makes sense. Violet says I was haggling for the shipping reduction by making a larger order and I got all those black spitting candles. Lordy, I suffered that one. Yeah. Well, they could have just been not a very good supplier, too. Desideron says, hi there. What would you think the best way to diagnose a trapped nature spirit during a paranormal investigation? How can someone free them? Thanks for advice.
That's up to you.
Okay, so generally the trapped nature spirits that I have found, I know that they're nature spirits. I don't know how to tell you. I mean, if you know they're a nature spirit, then you know they're a nature spirit, because they're not like a ghost. They're not like, I mean, they're specific. They're different from everything else. And generally speaking, if they're trapped, it's because of the confusion with corners and doorways. It's like they can't find their way out. Sort of like a bird that's stuck inside of a house and keeps bashing itself against the glass trying to get out because it can see light. But it doesn't know that there's no opening there, and even if the opening is right below it, it doesn't see it. So my approach has been to help them see the exit. And they can see selenite, the light coming out of selenite, extremely well. And so I use my selenite wand that I have, and I'll focus the energy coming out of the wand onto the floor and talk to the nature spirit and say, okay, I'm going to help you get back to nature where you belong. And so you just follow this light, and then I slowly back up towards the door and help them get out of the house. And once they're out of the house, then they're reoriented, and generally they'll just leave the area. And I think that there's various ways they can sometimes get in a house. I wouldn't be surprised that some of them are there because they follow a child, because children are much more open and interesting in that sense. And so they might be like playing with a kid and then end up in the house and then like, what? So that's my suggestion anyway. Angela says, yep, never haggle on that. I've had a seller offer me things at certain prices at a flea market, which I did accept, but he made the move to offer me, not me first. Well, yeah, that's a whole different thing.
Buying something on sale.
Yeah.
It goes on sale or something.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not devaluing it. That's taking advantage of a special deal to get something cool, which is one of the reasons why I go to Goodwill and hospice a lot. Because they often have some pretty cool stuff that I might not be able to afford in a regular store. And then I can cleanse it and use it. I get a lot of my statues that way. It's from hospice and Goodwill. Az says, I keep having something bother me at night. I see it. It's kind of transparent and floats around me and my bed. I keep telling it to leave if it's negative, but it just keeps knocking on my headboard. So I guess it's assuming that it's not negative, even if you're not having fun. So you might want to rephrase that. Instead of saying, leave if you're negative, you could say, this is a bad time, I'm trying to sleep, come back in the morning.
Or something.
Or, not in my room at night. This is not an okay space or time.
It's generally fine to just say, not now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that us sensitives, we put out an energy that is visible to the other side, to all kinds of beings, whether they're nature spirits or ghosts or whatever. They can see us. We kind of show up like a light, like a lighthouse in the darkness or the grayness or whatever. And when we're sleeping or in bed, then we're still and we're not moving. And so then all of a sudden it's like, oh, look, there's a stable light. Maybe I should check it out. And that's often what brings them to our side at night. So I do have a method for keeping human spirits out of a location, the ghost proofing video I did, which works pretty well. And that keeps human ghosts from coming in and disturbing your rest. But you also have to set boundaries with spirits. And so it sounds like your boundary is sort of a iffy boundary, saying go if you're negative. That's not a solid no, not now. And it's like, I'm not negative. Knock, 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 you know? So be more precise when it comes to your space. So Vanessa V says, talking about books, do you know Jason Miller? Nope, have not heard of him. We're not really that into the new authors since we've already done most of our research and study, and we're into the practice and doing all the time instead of looking up more stuff. I think I just gave as the advice, I can skip that question. When I sage, it stops for like 2 days, but then just starts again. And when you sage, are you doing a thing after you sage? Saging is to just get negative energy out of a space and clear it up, but you have to put something in its place. Because if you just clear a space of negativity and you don't put anything else in it, then whatever wants to come in can. I mean, it's... So something like champa, the incense, the Indian incense, temple incense, or sweetgrass, or some other sweet-smelling herb that brings in positive energy. I think frankincense works pretty good for that too. Myrrh is good for banishing. Myrrh is for the bringing in, and the frankincense is... You can do both.
That's the way I like to use them. The frankincense is a nice, clean scent. It seems to me it's really good for that. And then the myrrh, if you get good myrrh, it'll have a big heart thing. So I usually use it more. I've had it
for bringing in the positive stuff. Yeah. So you got two ideas, or a couple of ideas. Yeah.
Anyway, frankincense.
Crystal says, "Hi all. I bought a tarot deck from Amazon that turned out to be counterfeit. Wow. It has such a weird energy to it that I have never used it for a reading. I keep it as a reminder to be more mindful when I buy a deck." Well, that's kind of an unhappy thing. Yep. I'm sorry to hear that. Shay says, "Hugh, happy Sunday all. Lunchtime on a busy weekend. Everyone is ready for spring and wants to buy bags of soil. Lots of bags of soil. All right. Good. Keep you all busy." Angela says, "Wow, it really wants attention." Desiderata says, "My clairs are kind of fried, so it's hard for me to tell unless it's water damage or fire damage, etc. Physical symptoms. Yes, it's always kids' rooms, then kitchens when they get hungry." Well, there you go. Az says, "That's awesome advice. Thank you. You're welcome." Angela says, "I like using music to put a better vibe in the room." Well, yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. Singing bowls, chimes, music, bells, nice smelling food like apples and cinnamon on the stove that fills the house, baking bread. The smell of fresh baked bread is like the best smell in the world, it seems to me. Yeah, so whatever really does it, or singing and dancing and, you know, just sort of claiming your space, filling it up with you, it's definitely a good thing. Jonathan says, Jason Miller, Sorcery Secrets is good. Oh, sorry. I did. Mixed Diva says, "Any experience with glamour spells? I've been looking interested in them a bit to help with my gender dysphoria, and I'm tired of being constantly misgendered."
I myself haven't done any work along those lines.
I think it'd be interesting to try it, though, especially for that purpose. You know, you're just trying to make other people see you how you feel you are. And so it's not so much of a glamour as it is like a truth thing.
Yeah.
Like seeing your true self, like, what's the word I'm looking for? The words aren't happening.
Well,
spreading it out, like radiating, that's the word. Radiating your self-image so that other people pick up on it.
Yeah, you might even, I'd recommend trying to tie it to some sort of object, like a talisman,
a stone or
a
talisman,
ring,
yeah, or a bracelet.
Or a stone, yeah, something like that, and tie it to it that you can put on and take off whenever you want, and then you can work on getting it potent enough to be effective, though.
Yeah, I think the idea of a ring sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because they're small and inconspicuous and stuff like that, or they can be. And
Yeah, and if you pick one with just an inexpensive stone in it, maybe the stone type of stone that goes along with. Yeah.
whatever the energy you're trying to project happens
I'll
to
have
be.
to do some research on that. That's just one of the things I never worked with.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. So Jonathan says Jason Miller, Sorcery Secrets is good. Protective Magic isn't as good as Fortune's Psychic Self-Defense. Miller's sex book is a little stuffy, sterile for my taste. Okay. Violet says, what deck, Crystal? Sophia says, you should write books. Well, people say that a lot, and then it's really hard to write a book. It's easier to do this way because I'm a storyteller, and I have got, over 100 videos up at this point. So check them all out and find out what you need. Charity says, I think life is like going to college in Hogwarts. Yeah. Violet says, I have learned recently that a being entity that you bring to the focal point, circle in the triangle, can expand from it if it wants to. Any thoughts on this, Ian or Siofra? It halts me a bit.
Well, a couple of things. Generally, I'm going to take this question from the point of view of Barden's stuff. So a triangle, threefold, resonates with the number 3 in Saturn, is for materialization generally, and to materialize the being down. And if you've done it right, you've prepared the space with the atmosphere of the being. If you're trying to get a Venus being, then you need to fill it up with green light, the proper color for Venus, either in the triangle. Barden recommends a magic mirror for that, placed at the center of the top of the triangle. The triangle is generally separate from the circle in typical Western workings and in Barden's, because the circle represents deity in the universe, and you are the dot in the middle, so it makes a solar symbol like that, but you are the deity functioning in the universe. And so yeah, where was I going with that? Right, expanding. So if you've done everything properly and you have also put the atmosphere the being needs in the triangle, then it will generally not be able to expand out of the triangle. However, if you haven't prepared the environment and the being has to rely on its own energy to manifest down, because a person is using a typical Western evocation, then the being has to think it's worth the trade to manifest down. If that's the case, then by not being properly set up, you lose authority over the being. So that makes the whole process of evocation iffy without knowing how to prepare the environment and the triangle and stuff properly. So if that's the case and a being is being evoked, but it has to use its own energy to materialize down because you haven't provided it what it needs or the atmosphere that it needs, then yes, it will be able to just expand out of the thing. Basically, if you have yourself connected with the proper authority for the evocation, which I know that this is not one of the things that some people go with, like I believe Lon Duquette does not worry about an invocation of deity, but I might be wrong. I'm just guessing from reading his stuff. So if you do everything right, it won't, not because it's trapped, but because you have the authority. And if you try to evoke like a goetic being or something and you're using a sword, that has to be an effective sword and also part of your authority. So if your authority works, that type of thing won't be a problem. But if you don't know how to do it right and the being has to do it itself, then it can pretty much do whatever it wants, and it'll only go along with you as a, maybe it's a nice being you're evoking and it just wants to help you out or something, but otherwise, yeah.
And as Jonathan says, the triangle goes outside of the circle. You are in the circle, and the triangle is outside of the circle. That would be the traditional way of doing it. The other reason for the triangle is to have a focal point for the spirit to aim at, so that it knows where it's going. Sort of like a beam coming out. So Charity says, Unionville, Tennessee here. Old Salem, honestly cool, old South magic. Well, hi, Charity. Luna says, Crystal Herbides, Amazon and eBay sell loads of counterfeit decks. The price is usually the best indication as to whether or not it's a fake deck. £5 or $7 cheaper than it's probably good, half price. Crystal Herbides says it was Prisma Visions. Okay, so we'll make a note of that. Luna says half price or less than half price, then it's almost certainly a fake deck. And Violet said thank you, and then said her other thing was to Crystal. Mixed Diva says, so true, great idea. I will be trying that, and hopefully it helps. I like to make rings, so that's a great idea. Thank you for the tips, and please let me know if you find anything interesting if you'd like. Okay. Vanessa says, thanks, Jonathan. Angela says, the bot is here. Yes, we noticed. Luna says, Prisma Visions Tarot is a beautiful deck. Pretty sure it's an indie deck, so will only be available direct from the creator or select stores. Beware, as counterfeits are also sold on Etsy. Crystal Herbide says, at Luna Rookwood, I've learned my lesson and researched the deck and artist before I buy anything anymore, which is good. Yeah. Buyer beware. I mean, even in small stuff. So the other day, I'm in the store. I'm looking for some dishwasher liquid, for washing dishes in my sink. Here is Dawn, free and clear. Every other brand I've ever purchased, when it says free and clear, it's free of dyes and perfumes. Like an idiot, I don't look at the whole thing. It's only free of dyes. And it's got the most god-awful lavender smell that almost knocked me to the floor when I tried to use it. I gave it away and went and bought another one. But I felt cheated, like they were trying to trick me, because it's the only brand I've ever seen that uses free and clear and then puts of dyes in the little underneath. It's just like, So we always have to be checking. And it doesn't matter how smart we are, we can get tricked. That's the way that works. So Desdram says, could we talk about some ways to close portals, especially objects like mirrors and things people might pick up from thrift stores and antique shops? Okay, so when I find an open portal in a house, the first thing I have to do is figure out which way is the portal moving. They're either going to be clockwise or counterclockwise. And I figure this out by standing in the portal and feeling the energy and seeing how my body moves. I figure out ley lines and how they're moving the same way. So I'll close my eyes and just relax, and then my body will start moving one way or moving the other. And then I know which way it's going. So the way I close that kind of a portal is I take usually my selenite wand, because it works really good for this kind of stuff, but whatever wand or tool I'm working with, and I start on the outside of the portal. So if this is on the ground, let's say, like in a house, in the kitchen or something, and then I start walking in the opposite direction, pointing my tool at the ground, and I walk all the way around the outside, and then I start doing more and more closed circles. I just spiral my way all the way in to the center of the portal until I'm at a single point, and then it's closed. If it's in the air, you do the similar kind of a thing in the air, going around and around and around and around and around and closing it. Thrift stores, objects, and stuff like that, cleansing them, grounding them, depending on what they are. Sometimes you might want to actually put something in the ground for a month and let it let the ground just kind of absorb any energy that might be associated with it. You can try and cleanse it with other elements like water, or fire. If you're going to do fire, obviously you don't want to burn it up, but you want to pass it over the fire and put fire energy into it to get rid of it. Yeah, so, and mirrors, the easiest way to keep a mirror from being used as a portal is putting a earth pentagram on the mirror. And so that's what we do in the ghost proofing your house. That's how I close water inlets and outlets and windows, doors, and mirrors throughout a house. And so you draw the invoking pentagram of earth, and I always put a circle around it in order to give it like more reality in time and space. It sort of makes it more of an object and less of just a symbol, and then place it on there. And so that's what I would do. So, YouTube got rid of it when I reported it, luckily. Oh, you're talking about the deck, or the bot. Violet says, that is awesome, Ian, thank you. Did you like the chicken Kabbalah?
And I have no idea what that refers to.
Okay. Viking Wolf says, I reported it too.
Blair's, That's good.
More people report it, the better. Sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not, and it's just annoying. Blair says, I didn't think tarot decks could be counterfeit. I thought you could buy any deck, and as long as it's something you connect with, it's usable. Well, I mean, that's a possibility. Well, depends on what you're looking for.
And I'd like to add a little bit to that, because later on she asks, it's beautiful, so it can't be used. Well, maybe it can. The thing is, it depends. For me, I'll tell you, the only tarot deck I found that works right, or that works well for me, is Crowley's Thoth deck. I found that some other decks don't do so well. I really have a problem with Lon Duquette's deck. It won't tell me anything I don't already know, so that isn't helpful. So I think the deck depends, how well it works depends a lot on where you're at, and where the deck manufacturer was at, and what they intended for it in the first place. If they know the proper symbolism, and you get a set with proper symbolism to sink into your subconscious, that'll be a lot more powerful and effective for doing a tarot reading. So,
and there's a difference between a tarot deck and a...
Yeah, it's more important for a tarot deck to have proper symbolism, because you absorb all that as you're working with it also, and it helps for the divination and everything.
Right, there's a lot of oracle decks out there that are pretty to look at, but I've never found any of them to give me much in the way of interesting information or whatever. The tarot deck always has worked better for me when it comes to that kind of reading, looking for information about me in the future.
But part of it's definitely individual, though, so you'll really need to try them to see if they work for you. It depends on what you're trying to get out of it and what the deck was made for, and yeah.
So Violet says, cool information, Crystal and Luna. Angela says, Prima Visions always felt iffy to me whenever I'd look at it. Luna says, Blair Bauer, yep, they churn them out in China, and they're usually supplied in a nasty tuck box, and the print is usually not as clear, and the cardstock is bad.
Well, yeah, that's a bummer.
Violet says, ooh, Siofra, I did not know a portal was one way or the other. Well, that's the way energy works. Luna says, in case you hadn't already figured, I'm a tarot oracle nerd. It's good to have one, and everyone needs one. Blair says, I got one from Five Below, and it's beautiful, so it can't be used? It just really, we think we answered that. Depends.
Yep.
Desideradum says, hey, Jonathan Miller's protection book works really well. Tends to work better for beginners, I think. But yeah, Fortune is top shelf. And Ian said it. Blair, maybe it can. Hang on a bit. Jonathan says, Dizzy, you are 100% correct. Luna says, Blair Bauer, you can definitely use it. No problems there. You could even print and laminate a deck, or even draw a deck yourself, as long as you are happy using it and you feel connected to it. Well, actually, traditionally, in the old days, all decks were handmade.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why that whole saying is you can't buy yourself a deck. You have to be given a deck. That's the reason for that, because there were no mass-produced decks. So the only way you could get a deck would be if somebody made you a deck and gave it to you, and then you did the same for someone else.
And that's what the Golden Dawn did originally. Each member would make his own tarot deck, painted properly, and cut the cards out and paint them and make their own. And that was last time I was affiliated with the builders of the Additum, Paul Foster Case's group. That was their teaching approach too at that point. The point I was at was to they sell a set of unpainted cards but with outlines on them, and then you paint them in yourself so that you're doing the work and getting that involvement with the cards, because that's also helpful if you want to use them for divination and stuff. It's helpful to
it makes a definite energetic connection.
Energy into it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Az says, I'll definitely do the earth pentagram on my mirrors from now on. I keep turning them around at night, which is getting annoying. Well, I can imagine. You could also cover them with silk if you wanted to, if you felt you needed to, because silk will stop anything from coming through. So silk is a good magical insulator, and so that's another option. Blair says, I appreciate the information, thank you, and you're most welcome. Luna says, I use the oracle decks to add meaning to a tarot reading or to confirm a tarot reading if I wasn't too sure of the meaning. Angela says, I drew and laminated my own deck for self-reading. It's worked amazingly. That's awesome that somebody has done it. Desidratum says, thanks for great answers, Siofra. Forgot to ask about anointing oil. I have some St. John's wort oil. Hoodoo calls it red oil for protection and also depression. I'm not sure how to consecrate it. Well, basically, a consecration is making a statement about the use you're going to put something to and announcing it to the universe and stating the purpose for the object and then using it just for that purpose. So if you're going to consecrate the oil, then you can't use it for anything else rather than magical anointing, because if then you used it for cooking or whatever, like I don't think you would for this, but still, that's the idea, is that you don't want to use it for following mundane uses if it's been specifically consecrated for magical purposes. And so you can do it, a simple way of doing it is showing the object, whatever it is, to each of the 4 elements and consecrating it with the element, clearing out any energy that's left over from someone else or anything that might interfere with the magical purpose. So, you could sprinkle water on it, you can pass it over a flame, you can put salt on it for earth, and then you can use smoke, incense, some kind of air thing or a bell to consecrate it with air. So, and then if you want, you can also consecrate it with spirit, which it doesn't have a specific thing in the elemental table or whatever to use. It's just a conversation. And that's the thing, is like magic is a language that we develop and create with the universe, and how we use our words and how we use our objects and how we treat things that are around us determine how powerful those objects and things become. So if we're like lackadaisical about it, then they might work when we need them because we have spirits on the other side that are trying to help us. But if we're more serious about it, then it works when we need it because of what we put into it, and we don't have to work to try and get something out of it because it's already there. Speaking of which, because of the conversation last Sunday about Jupiter, I started making my Jupiter wand. So this is my new wand I made while I was making other wands. So I was pretty tickled with that. And so I'm going to have the same kind of thing. So this is going to be the last planetary wand I need, I think. Because I've got solar, lunar, Mars, Mercury, now Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. This is the last one.
Oh, so you have Venus.
I have all of the other planetary wands. Cool. So this will be the last one I need. And it's mostly lapis, and I put some magnesite on there in between the lapis stones for its attraction properties. And it's myrtle wood. So I'm starting to charge that up since Jonathan let us know this was the best time to do Jupiter workings. I thought, cool, okay, it's time. So Monica says, I have ordered quite a few of the half-price Oracle decks in the beginning, not knowing they were counterfeit. I now tend to avoid those, but on occasion when I feel really called to a deck and I don't, probably something else in there, have the funds, is not really a good thing to do because then you don't really get the information books. Some do, but some, the PDF disappears over time. I've always cleaned and connected with all.
You missed one again.
I missed it on purpose so I could get the entire sentence.
Sophia Bess? No, I see you just.
Yeah,
see what
I
you
went
did.
to the second half of that so I could do it in line instead of interrupting it in the middle. So Luna says that Angela, that sounds awesome. Sophia says, can you tell about a mirror box, how to make it, what's its purpose, and rituals, please? Okay, so in my experience, a mirror box is a spell to send energy or to get the beings that exist out there in the universe to look at somebody and to make their karma come in quicker. And what you make the mirror box out of is not as important as the energy you put into it. I have in the past used small mirrors and then glued them together and then put the poppet inside of the mirror box. But I always put in a statement about what this person is supposed to have done and ask like the guardians of karma to take a look at it because they have a wider view than I do, and the person who's asking me to do this might be lying to me, or I could be mistaken about the purpose of what's going on. And after you get everything in the box, then you close the box and then you go and bury the box somewhere. And everyone I have done has worked. So
I have to briefly step out of you right now.
okay, so it has to there has to be a reason for it. You want the universe to agree with your purposes for making the box in the first place, and the reason for burying the box is to be, you're done with it. It's like you're letting the universe now take care of the situation and it's not yours to deal with anymore. And note that it can take a number of years for it to succeed on the physical plane because it takes time for things to actually manifest. There was a local doctor who was actually harassing a woman here in town as well as doing bad things to his patients. He was a foot doctor, and a person lost their foot because of his inability to do things properly. He was doing a lot of drugs and all kinds of things, and he like took a hatchet to somebody's door. And so I did one on him to save our community. I felt it was a community service because he was seeing a lot of people, and it takes a lot to get a doctor to lose their medical license, and we succeeded. We got his medical license pulled finally. But then there was still some time before it was completely done because the woman he was harassing and actually blackmailing, she had more to learn from the experience until she could stand up for herself in a certain way, and went to the authorities, and then he ended up going to prison. So it can have some very real effects on this plane, but they can take time, and if you leave it in the hands of the spirit world, then you're not accumulating karma from it because it's like, here's what's going on, I'm shedding a light on this situation, and you guys know more than I, and you decide what to do. So hopefully that that helps. Blair says, any new Fae interactions? Oh, yes. That was entertaining a couple of nights back. I was having a hard time sleeping, and I kept waking up, and I was like, okay, fine, it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep. So I decided to play with my aura, my energy field, and I started doing aura dancing like I did in a past life, just sort of spreading the colors around and spewing them here and there, and streamers of color and so forth. And it attracted a whole slew of the little guys, the little fairies, the little dragonfly ones that apparently like to hang around. And they were just like all over the place. And so then I was able to go to sleep after I did that for a while, and I had an out-of-body experience, I'm assuming, because of how it went. and I found myself swimming through the air. I was like, didn't have any weight, and I would just like grab some air and pull it like this to make myself go forward a little bit, and then I thought, well, I should close my eyes and see if I can like float up. Like if I'm not looking, maybe I can float up or something instead of just going straight. And it felt like I was floating up. I was pretty excited. I opened my eyes and my head was down on the floor, like 2 inches from the floor, and my feet were up towards the ceiling, and I was completely upside down. So I laughed and woke up and went back to sleep. So yeah, that was kind of entertaining. And apparently there is no sense of up in the astral. It's like, it's not there. So, Angela said it was very fun, tons of work, but very fun, I gotta say. Mixed Diva says, I always enjoy your stories about the Fae. And we already talked about that. Oops, I just saw, yeah, someone else asked the same question. Everybody's on the same page. It's great. Monica says, I did that part. Okay, now I can go by. Jonathan says, the copyrights on the classic Weight deck and its books is expired. You can find it easily if you Google it. I printed my cards on cardboard. Worked well because they are small enough to actually use. Interesting. Desideratum says, yep, the red oil is only for magic. Normally, psalms are used to consecrate, but not sure how I felt about that. Side note, I've heard people will sometimes breathe on an object to add spirit. Oh yeah, good point. I've done that too. I just forgot. Especially when I'm doing scrying kind of stuff. A lot of times if I'm charging up a bowl of water for scrying or a mirror, I'll blow on it, and it just seems like the right thing to do. Kenny says, Hail Siofra, I've been seeing angel numbers for months. Right to the point, I see them every day. Have you ever been in contact with archangels yourself? Well, I've certainly met and interacted with a number of angels. I don't know if they were archangels or not. But I have 2 angels that are my guardian angels. I was just talking about them on Friday, actually. About how they were there. Jonathan says, deck works well. Bigger issue than the quality of the deck is my skill in using it. There's always something to learn, isn't there? Angela says, ugh, what a jerk that doctor sounded like. Yeah, he was definitely a jerk. McDiva says, you had a doctor's license revoked? That is truly incredibly powerful. Well, it wasn't just me, but
he did all the stuff to let
yeah,
it,
yeah. I mean, I think the guy who lost his foot was kind of like the beginning of the end for him.
He was basically a criminal, so.
And he had been people had been telling the medical board about him for years, and they still hadn't pulled his license. So I think I was just like the last push, to try and get it over the mark. But yes, that was a good thing for our community. Luna says, Jonathan, I've not seen any problems in your tarot reading skills. Jonathan says, Siofra, awesome that you did your Jupiter wand. I am super happy for you. Now all you need is a bag to put all the new money in. Yeah, I'm waiting for the new money. For anyone else, you still have a month while Jupiter is amazing. Well, I'm going to be charging it up during this month.
Yeah,
so.
I should make a point of doing some Jupiter stuff now, yeah.
Why not take advantage?
Yeah.
Desideratum says that, Jonathan, that's great news about weights. Now I can use those images in resin jewelry. Ooh, sweet. Luna says, I did a mirror box spell recently for 6 people in one go. Took a while to bury them. Thank you, Siofra, for your advice and help with this. Yeah. I don't know, some year in the future, someone may dig up a part of the dunes and find the box I put the doctor in and wonder what the hell that was. Jonathan says, thanks, Luna. My tarot is good, whereas I think you or Siofra might receive an actual lotto number from the tarot. Yeah, me and lotto just don't seem to be connected. Angela says, how is Collie doing? Is she still on her brick? Oh, yeah.
Yep.
She's staying there until this is over. It's like she's committed. And, we hear rumors, we don't know for sure, of Russian generals quitting their posts and leaving and stuff like that. So maybe it's working. It's just one little addition into the whole pile of stuff. Mixed Diva says, I work in healthcare, so I know how hard it is to get medical licenses pulled. Glad the community was successful. Sophia says, thank you. Do I have to put it in a puppet mirror box? Well, yeah. I mean, you have to have some representation. It can be a drawing if you want, a photograph, I use poppets, like made from fabric, and then I can put whatever herbs I think are appropriate, and sometimes some stones in there. I do them for both healing and for this. In fact, the healing one that I have on my altar right now, I just heard from the person who asked me to help this person that she knew. He is now he's getting well quickly. The treatment for his cancer and stuff like that worked, so that was nice to know. And I remember a few weeks ago I was telling you about the little girl, the child that my daughter asked me to send energy to, and so I asked her, and she says, "Oh yeah, I think she's fine now." I'm like, she's so lackadaisical about this stuff, it just drives me crazy. Jonathan says, Siofra, would you mind telling us what Kali is saying about Ukraine? Well, she's not saying, hopefully she's doing. She is known to have destroyed demons to save the world previously, so I figured this might be a job she'd take on, and she seems to be quite happy about it. So we shall see what happens. Mixed Diva says, by the way, Siofra, I think I finally smelled a fae today, like you talk about. I was in my car and smelled a mix of lilacs, jasmine, and was not near any. I was at the park prior to my car. Okay, awesome. I mean, that's just so neat when you get the clairalience, and it gives you nice things. Ian's had the clair smell for a while, but it was always like negative smells from people that we knew. It was like,
yeah, it seems like mostly when I pick up, it's like, yeah.
This is like the worst BO ever, and I'm going like, what are you talking about? He doesn't smell. Oh, yes, he does. But he doesn't smell on this plane, apparently.
Unfortunately, I smell lots of unpleasant smells. I have had a couple things of perfuminess once or twice.
Well, we had the vanilla in the living room. We both smelled that at the same time. That was quite remarkable. It was so strong. And, yeah. And he kept thinking it was his creamer for his coffee. And I'm like, not this. This is too strong for that. Because that's there every morning, and I never smell it. Angela says, are some fae associated with chocolate? I had my room recently smell like melting chocolate. Yes. Apparently my granddaughter has one in the back room that smells like chocolate. So yeah. And Dublin says, negative smells. Ha ha ha. Ah, yes, the negative smells. My friend's feet. Ew.
Yeah, I used to, when I was doing the banishing ritual, the pentagram all the time, at the time I used to get an effect almost like ozone after I'd done it. If you've ever smelled ozone.
I have. They probably have too. It's like what happens after lightning in the air. Desert says, what would you consider doing a video specifically about crossing over ghosts? Have you ever encountered any seriously dark entities, and what do you do? Well, okay, I'll think about that. See if I can do it a slightly different way. I've done, like, sharing some of my paranormal investigations and stuff like that, but I'll see about doing another one. And I ran into one really malevolent entity, but it was trapped inside of a wax figure, and I decided to leave it where it was and not do anything about it. I just left. I'm like, I don't know exactly what's going on, who put this thing there, why they put this thing there, but this is not the ordinary anger, frustration that I'll often get from a spirit, human spirits, because a lot of times they get pretty frustrated because either they have numbers of teams that have come through and said that they're there to help and don't, which makes them mad, or it's like they're frustrated because no one has been able to see them or hear them and help them and whatnot. So yeah, so I'll do another video on that. I don't know how long that'll take me, but I'll see what I can come up with to help. I saw a thing on one of the paranormal groups that I'm in about, have you ever had a spirit refuse to cross over, and do you know why? And I've never actually had that happen to me. So I don't know if it's because I have a different skill set. Most paranormal investigators are actually not capable of crossing over a spirit. They can maybe nudge it and hope that it goes in the right direction, but if they're not a clairvoyant, medium, empath, they really wouldn't be able to tell what was going on. And so, yeah, being an empath definitely helps a great deal. for that, because then I know how they're feeling. And if I can find out how they're feeling, I can usually find a way to address whatever that issue is. Desdram says, speaking of smells, a lot of cryptids, interdimensional spirits smell really bad. I wonder why. Yes, I remember you talking about the pirate wax figure. Yeah, that was kind of weird. And then it got out, and then it was put back, and it was really mad. It was like, it's a strange thing when you're driving down the highway minding your own business, and all of a sudden you go like, what? The heck is that? I don't know why they smell bad. Maybe it's because they're not supposed to be here or something that they, in the process of coming, they've released some kind of energy. I have no idea. I know I've heard that about Sasquatch, that they have a odoriferous smell, although some people say they smell sweet. In one show we were watching, and they were describing the smell, and I'm like, that's a bear. That's what a bear smells like in the spring when it's eating berries. That's exactly, because I smelled a bear once that had just crossed paths with me on my way to the outhouse, and mist was out, and the smell was in the droplets in the air, hanging in the air, and I walked right through it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a bear. I was kind of anxious when I was in the outhouse that day, worried that he was going to come back, he or she. So yeah. Luna says, I get ammonia smelling salts smell quite regularly, but occasionally I get pleasant smells. Yeah, I like the pleasant smells much better. But there's a lot of places where people smell alcohol or tobacco smell because of the spirits that are there and stuff like that. That one's pretty common. Dublin says, at Desideratum, I did not know about those creatures. Well, yeah, I've heard about that about Bigfoot. Angela says, I used to get floral smells or perfume. One time I smelled like rain when it was sunny and no sign of it. That sounds lovely. I like the smell of rain, the first, like the light spring rain clearing the air. It makes the air smell so good. It's like a lovely smell. So I figure, we should take the smells, good and bad, as a signal that they're either good or bad. If they smell really bad, there's probably something not right going on.
Well, yeah, at the very least, it's unpleasant, makes you want to get away from it.
Could be a defense mechanism, like a skunk. Because skunks are adorable, and I love them very much, but I really don't want to smell them. Yep. And they're very good at making you go away, so I suppose it's possible there could be some spirits would have a defense mechanism to keep people away.
Yeah.
And so they would smell bad, which would make people leave.
I've heard they make great pets, though, once they're sent.
Oh, the skunks.
Yeah.
Yes, they're adorable, from what I hear. We have a friend who has the skunk as her spirit animal or her totem animal. And wherever she lives, skunks live around her. They are like attracted to her house. She's like, okay, there's another skunk. But yeah, so it's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought of that. So that's probably a good thing to keep in mind since we don't know everything about everything. Oh my. Dublin says, my whole apartment complex smells bad. How to deal with that sort of evil?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I hated it when we were living in apartments myself.
Well, the only thing you can do is control your own space and then kind of cover yourself up with like shielding and stuff like that when you're walking through it to get out of your space and then back to your space. Because really, I mean, the amount of anger and rage and tension and conflict and violence and stuff that's out there right now, hopefully this means we're getting to some kind of a breaking point where people will come to their senses, but it attracts a lot of negative beings that feed off of that energy, and then it sort of becomes a boiling over, like those wall crawler type things. And I've been seeing a lot more of them.
And usually people have, if you're just talking random people in an apartment complex, you've got larvae and thought forms flying all over the place also, usually.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody earlier today that, I used to have to move every couple of years. And because I kept tuning into everybody's thought forms and their feelings and their energy and stuff like that, I'd get to the point where I could walk down the street, look at a house, and know everything that was going on in that house. We're talking every fight they had and everything they were hiding from each other, all of their secrets. And I really didn't want to know any of that stuff. It was very annoying. And then I'd move to a new neighborhood because then it would take a while for me to tune into them, for it to get through, because I didn't have enough control over my own abilities and I couldn't shield at that point. I did not know how. So, yeah. It can be a rough transition when you're a serious empath. So Dublin says, yeah, I know it's tough here. Desideratum says at Dublin, yep, that's one way of identifying the entity. If you aren't a medium or your clairs are fried like me, bad smells aren't always negative entities, I don't think. Yeah.
I've got them off persons, off objects. I once had a book that was so bad, and the smell was definitely part of it, that I ended up having to burn it because I couldn't banish it. And it was an old grimoire. It was actually by Waite, book of black magic and pacts. And the fact is, what was associated with the book had little to do with the subject of the book and more to do with the fact that I'd bought it used from somebody who had such negativity to them. I couldn't seem to get it out of the book, so I ended up burning it just to destroy it.
Sometimes you're not left with an option. Better to burn it and get it out of circulation altogether than pass it on to somebody else who may not have the ability to notice.
I'm sure a brand new volume of that wouldn't be like that. It was just that this was an old one and somebody really wanted to use it for nasty stuff, apparently.
Apparently so. They don't not sound like they were good. So Chill Baby says, do you think it is a distinctly human ability to come off as something different than you are, to have a deceiving presence of some sort, whether physically or energetically, as opposed to other beings?
Myself, I would say no. There generally can be beings that will attempt to deceive you and stuff. Usually it's because you don't have that natural authority up. If you do, generally beings will respect that. Yeah, so there are ones out there that could attempt to deceive. I haven't ran across any yet that have attempted to deceive me, but yeah, they can, especially if all the rules are not followed, and the more a person knows, the better, as far as that goes, about beings and working with them.
Yeah, and I think that it's more common with people because of just how we're made. When we're pure spirit, we don't have as many compartments and stuff like that we can like shift things towards, and we don't have the same kind of conscience sort of issues. And definitely you have to be wary of people. I am a fairly trusting individual. I will tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I'm now much more capable of going like, oh yeah, I should listen when they say that they're not nice and agree with them.
You'll see why I made that comment when you get down to the...
Okay, so Dublin says that Desideratum, yes, sometimes bad smells is not evil, just bad cooking. Desideratum says sulfuric smells are super bad news. I've never had that experience yet. I have. That's when something tried to possess me when I was like 14, I think. Angela says, one time one of my oracle decks suddenly became negative and it smelled strange and I couldn't get it off. I had to toss the deck and get a fresh copy. Luna says, I don't need a skunk. I have a new cat and she stinks. But I love her. Jonathan says, I've heard that about disembodied growling, like it's a very bad sign. Well, that's going to depend because I met that guardian kind of spirit being that did growl when I approached it because I got too close. So that was a warning, like, a tiger or whatever would give you or something. And I immediately backed off because obviously I was being bad. So not always.
So I figured Desideratum's next comment is what would make you laugh.
Okay, so Desideratum says at Dublin, yep, burning asafoetida, oh my God, is the most god-awful smell, no kidding. But extremely powerful banishing negative entities, supposedly.
It's the most god-awful smell if you're not burning it.
I know. I made him keep it outside on a windowsill outside of the house. He could not have it in my
smell
cupboard.
Would not stay in the plastic baggie.
It would not. It was awful. God, that was terrible stuff. Okay, so
and some people use it in their.
They cook with it.
Eat, yeah.
Yeah, it's a spice that they use in their food.
Which
I'm not
is
sure how
scary.
they managed to get it past their nose. I guess it doesn't smell bad when it's in the food.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because I haven't been able to try it. But it's good for getting, moving away powder.
One of its alternative names is devil's dung.
Yep, it sounds about right. So Blair says, what does it mean when randomly throughout the day I experience an unknown person's death from their point of view? The emotions, the pain, like a distant memory. That means that your clear abilities are really open.
Yeah, maybe you should work
on your empathy, so you need to work on shielding so that you're not picking up stuff you don't mean to. Look through the list of the psychic self-defense videos that we have up there, and empath survival is one of them, but learning how to shield and ground and have effective boundaries and so forth. And even with that, sometimes things happen, like Ian and I in the store, and he points out these weird knives that he was looking at that he could feel, and I walk up and drop my shields to look at them, and they're Nazi memorabilia, and I start almost throwing up in the store. So you have to be careful. I mean, seriously. But if you can allow yourself at certain times to experience that, it'll give you insight into, ghosts, the people that are stuck and why they're stuck. But you just don't want to let them overwhelm you or just be when you don't want them.
It needs to be under control, yeah.
Right. Control is the essential factor when it comes to this stuff, I think. Chill Baby said, for some reason, I've been floating the idea that the Fae may enjoy people who boldly are what they are. Perhaps because they seem to be that way. I don't know. Do you have these impressions as well? Well, I think they don't care for people who are fake, for sure. Somebody put up a comment and said that they don't care about us and they have their, that they have nothing to do with us, which, I mean, the way they stated the comment, I wasn't exactly sure what way they meant it, but we're a part of the world and they're concerned with the world. So us is definitely part of their whole shtick. But being able to communicate with us is a whole different ballgame, and being drawn to specific people and helping them out is definitely an energetic kind of connection. So yeah, I think that they're definitely drawn to genuineness, that they can see that enough in us. So if somebody's running around faking and being all sweetness and light, and it actually has an undercoating of dark energy and snide remarks and disguised as humor and whatnot, they wouldn't be appreciative of that. So I don't know. So Dublin says thumbs up for Desideratum. Blair says it's very unpleasant, but I'm aware it could boil down to my OCD, not be anything more than that. Well, we're always learning something new. Dublin says, I don't know what that is, but no thanks. Asafoetida? Yep. Yeah, you don't need that. Yep. Desideratum says that, Blair, you might be picking up thought forms or psychic recordings in buildings or in the air itself and in the land. Ian's had a couple of experiences where he's actually been able to see what the land looked like in the past. Like when we were doing one of the dehauntings above a theater in town, he suddenly got a very vivid picture of our town when it was dirt roads and carts on horses and stuff like that. So seeing things that happened in the past is definitely one of the clairs.
Yeah. I can't make it work at will. It just operates when it wants to at this point.
So Eliza says, yes, please speak about the growling. I just heard growling outside my window 2 nights ago, and it was not an animal. There was nothing there. Well, make sure that it won't get in if you don't want it there. Nancy says, sometimes our house has a clove smell. Does that have a special fairy meaning? I don't know, but cloves are very refreshing kind of a smell. They're sort of a clean smell. So it seems like it would be a positive thing. Moonfire says, we have upstairs neighbors who are never quiet, currently have pounded nonstop since you started the show. Oh dear. Oh, it's terrible living with noisy neighbors that have no consideration for anyone else. I'm sorry. That's why we're glad we're in a house. Angela says, your lights flickered at that. I had a teacher in Catholic school tell me the same about angels. I felt empathetic. Come back here. Gloomy the whole day, like, hey, that wasn't nice. Okay. And Dublin says, I know what you mean, to Moonfire. Chill Baby says, when I spoke with the blue energetic Fae being, it happened without forethought telepathically. When this happens, what all can the other hear in my head? Just what I send or tell them?
In general, yes. Unless you've hit, there are some beings that can and will read your mind, good and negative beings. So it all depends on, some of them can if they want to.
Well, for example, when I met Argus, there was no hiding anything from him. And so, yes, that can happen. And if it ever happens to you, like with a deity like Argus, just, relax, stay calm, and hope, and wait it out. Because it's like, yeah, there was no stopping that.
Yeah.
That was like, woo!
In general, though, if you're dealing with either positive beings of a hierarchy or something, assuming above the nature spirits and things, and that type of stuff, they'll generally, if they can read your mind, they'll generally not, unless there's a good reason.
Because it's polite not to.
But dealing with higher entities is pretty interesting, because my observation has been that they can put like an entire paragraph into one word. It might seem like you're hearing one word said auditorily, even though it's not really audible. But they can convey like paragraphs of information with that. So
well, it's kind of like my experience with the Akashic Records. When it showed me the page, it was like a moving story, pictures in my head, even though it was short. Yeah, it is kind of interesting. Luna says, I had disembodied purring in my room last night. Not my new cat, as she was locked out of my room as she sleeps on my face. Must be my deceased cat letting me know he's still there. Well, they don't stop you from breathing.
Disembodied purring wouldn't worry me too much.
Disembodied purring, yeah. Growling, different. Purring, okay, that's fine. Desert Ram says that Jonathan, the folks who say growling is a demonic usually say everything is. It would freak me the F out, though. Yeah.
Yeah, growling, yeah. Would me too, probably.
Well, it was definitely startling when that thing growled at me, but it wasn't mean. It was just like a warning. So Mixed Diva says, I would love to remember how the earth smells before pollution. Oh, yeah. That is a nice smell. And Dublin says that Mixed Diva, you and me both. Angela says she tried to tell me angels don't care, which I felt in my heart wasn't true. That comment got swept up in the chat when you mentioned the comment about Fae. If they didn't care, they wouldn't be around. Okay. Is my opinion. I feel the beings that interact care. Yeah, I mean...
There are beings that do.
They do. And, the angels that I have encountered, they definitely care. They can't always do certain things. It seems like they have limitations that I'm still trying to understand. When I'm doing distance healings and I run into a guardian angel where I'm going, it's like I can never seem to get any practical information. Like, is this okay for me to do? That's something for humans to decide for themselves. Like, help? Not really. So, but Desram says, yep. Nancy says, by the goddess being on a brick, what exactly does that mean? I missed the beginning. Thank you. We did a spell, me, my daughter, my granddaughter, Ian, and my friend up in Portland, to try and help the Ukrainian people. And the first part of that was taking a potato, coring part of it out. We filled it with some fluid condenser over here, wrote his name on it, put Putin's name in the potato, buried the potato. I talked to the land spirits, the land guardians, everybody I could think of. Is like the law of the king, where the king is supposed to sacrifice himself if the people are not thriving. And if he's failed the land and his duty, then he's supposed to be sacrificed by the land. And so I brought that up. I talked to any beings I could think of for protection or for judging. I talked to the Saturnian heads and asked them to have a look at the situation to see if there was anything that they could do in order to bring a conclusion about that was a good one. And then we buried the potatoes in the ground and I put a red brick on top of it and put Kali on the brick of the three we have here of Putin, because she is a goddess that has been, one of her main things was she was created to save the world from demons, and that's what she did. She fought the demons.
Yeah, so the brick isn't important at all. It's just a separator.
Well, and the brick is a way to keep him down and keep the potatoes from growing. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so she's sitting on the brick.
I mean, it doesn't have a magical purpose.
Although red is one of her colors. It seemed like a red brick was a good idea. And then we buried eggs and sunflower seeds in our garden in the front to help Ukraine. And as like new birth, energy, that kind of thing. And obviously the sunflower is their flower, so that was the symbolism. It was just a fairly simple kind of thing to do to try and help us deal with all of this, because we can't go over there and help them. Not going to happen. So Jonathan said, Dizzy, I used to really enjoy a paranormal investigation show where they just spoke to people about their experiences. Whenever someone said they heard disembodied growling, it was a severe story. And Chill Baby says, your Argus advice is appreciated, but also hilarious. Stop, relax, and hope. Yep. Violet says, many of the beings we are supposed to integrate to ourselves, had you hear that? No. I think that's something else you're talking about. I mean, that's the idea that everything out there is a part of us, and then so we're supposed to learn, accept, incorporate into ourselves to get power over it, and I disagree. I don't think that's true. Jonathan says, Nancy, it's not a euphemism, it's literal. Nancy said, I never heard of a brick used like that. Is that from a specific tradition? No, that's from my brain. Angela said, I heard a growling once when my family was arguing with each other loudly. It sounded like a person saying, but in a growly way. 5 minutes later, I lost it. There we are. The argument was over suddenly, I found out. Only recently it was one of my matrons who was frustrated with the noise interrupting my meditation with her at the time. Well, yeah, my granddaughter growls really well when she's frustrated. She's been a growler since she was about 2. And growling can run in the family. Desert Rodham says that, Angela, I can tell you from both my experience with the Fae and angels do care. Fae were incredibly kind to me when my service dog passed away. They absolutely cared. So Jonathan has noticed we're going over our time, and he says, have a great week, everyone. And Angela says, agreed. Desideratum, it made me so sad when she said that I was 8 years old when that happened. Take care, all. Blessings for the week ahead from Luna. Nancy, thank you for the explanation, Siofra. Dublin says that Luna, same to you. And everybody's okay. So, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your presence, and we love the questions. And it's always great to hear more stories and get more input and all that other stuff. So, love you guys. Talk to you later.
Awesome.